Thanks for joining us today. I've got an amazing guest. Craig Siegel flew in from Manhattan to be with us here in Nashville, Tennessee today. And you're listening to the Impact Effect. Impact meaning to influence and effect meaning results. So Craig and I are going to dive into some heat today. We're going to talk about relationships. We're going to talk about his book launch, branding, his journey. And we're going to dive into some real deep conversations and some hard questions. I didn't let anything loose previously in our last episode, and I'm not going to do it today with Craig.
What are you most excited about for tonight's event?
I think, just putting the right people in the room tonight is something that's going to be advantageous to everybody in its own, let alone the heat you bring, the knowledge, the motivation, the mindset, all of it, Yeah.
These events are so special. It really is one idea, one connection, one relationship away from everything. But then again, it goes back to what you said, like how many people have we seen that go from event to event, podcast to book? I call them the self-help event junkies. At some point, you got to take action. So that's my inspiration today, is to transfer something tangible they can extract and walk away with and start to put to use immediately.
I think that's the number one problem, right? Is the information's there.
Yeah. If anything, there's too much.
So do you cipher through it, or do you spend quality time and ask deep questions to someone who's done it and is doing it?
Yeah.
Dave Meltzer I saw the other week, and I know he's one of your mentors, and you do the pod with him and all that. And at the end of the day, it's like, why pay the dummy tax, right? Is what he was telling me.
Yeah.
He's like, just collaborate and get with the right people.
Right.
Be a good person. Do it for the right reasons. And that rocket ship starts.
That's right. Yeah.
It's what I've seen you do since following you the last year and a half, you know?
Yeah.
So how did you kind of put yourself in that position, right? Like, you started Wall Street, super successful. Like, can you talk a little bit about that transition?
From what I'm doing now?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had been so miserable for quite some time. And it's interesting because there was no catastrophe. Like, I wasn't shot in war or anything like that. But as you know, my pain was my pain. Everybody goes through something a little different. And I just found myself in such a dark season. And I started to buy into this story that this was it. Like, I'll make a certain amount of money. I'll always be stressed out. I'll never fall in love. It'll always be stressful relationships, toxic relationships. And I started to really believe it. And then in the season between that and what I'm doing now was very pivotal. And that's when running found me. And I want to be intentional. I didn't find running found me. And it just gave me purpose and meaning at a season when I was desperately searching for something. I had my career, even though I hated it. I did it. I always gave everything I got, and I was making money, but I needed something to fill my cup. And so I started running, and it just introduced me to this whole other spirit, if you will, that I could do really hard things. I don't have to be experienced. I could essentially do anything. A couple years ago, you couldn't pay me to run. Literally, you couldn't give me $5,000 to run 2 miles. Now I'm paying to run marathons. In fact, I just signed up for one last week, New York City in November. So that started to give me confidence again. And then ultimately the pandemic provided, I have so many nicknames for the pandemic. I call it the global awakening, the great separator, historic opportunity, which is what I took advantage of. And I just got quiet for the first time really ever. Blocked out that interference, that chit chat, that noise, and I just connected. And as it turns out, mindfulness is a portal to expansion. And I started getting those downloads, and it was like, if not now, then when? And it occurred to me that I'm obsessed with personal development. But this is more than just an obsession. This is actually my assignment. And then put together a strategy, which I'm going to talk about tonight, and how people can implement that, whatever they want to do. And I hit the ground running. And for the first time in my life, I was in alignment. And it occurred to me, I've been successful at other things I didn't love. We all have. And so that's one thing that gave me confidence, is the things that made me successful were not the things, they were me. And those characteristics are transferable. And so I didn't have any celebrity friends, connections, or anything like that, but I was resourceful and determined. And so I put together my vision for CLS. And one thing that was big for me to come full circle is relationships and collaborations. Who did I want to associate myself with? That was so important for me. And I was very strategic, got into alignment, and the rest, as they say, is history, and it blew up.
I love it. When you decided that you were miserable, what was the first step you took? I know you said running found you.
Yeah.
But like, what was that first step? You identified, all right, I'm fucking miserable.
Yeah.
This ain't it. Can't keep doing this. I got to
Right.
find something else. What was that first move?
So before that, I started drinking a little bit more than I'd like to admit. It wasn't a long season, but I think I was just trying to escape my reality.
Oh, I was there for a minute
Yeah.
myself, man. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, and I think it's good to talk about that because I don't talk about it enough, and it shows people like where we were compared to where we are now. And I realized like life's not meant to. You're not supposed to mask life to get through the day. I just want to get to 10 a.m. No, it's not how it's supposed to be. And so when I found running, it was like, whoa, this is really challenging and tough, but I'm into it. And in order to get better at running, one thing that I had to let go of was drinking or drinking excessively
Yep.
for no reason. So cut that out, started becoming a better human being, going to bed a little bit earlier, waking up earlier, eating right. And that was kind of the spark to put me in a different frequency to become available.
Gotcha.
And then the pandemic was that big historic opportunity for me.
So it sounds like this transformation was both physical and mental
Spiritual,
and spiritual.
emotional, all of them. I mean, it hit every single box. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And as it turns out, I think you can agree to this too. Emotional pain is so much tougher than physical pain. Like physical pain will subside.
Yep.
But when you're in emotional and spiritual pain, that's tough. And I don't want anybody to deal with that.
Yeah. And I mean, the stress levels go higher, the cortisol gets higher, right? You find yourself making decisions that you wouldn't normally make because all these things are amplified.
Yeah.
And, you've got to bring it back to the center and the core. I actually just found deep breathing being something that's extremely beneficial to me. And, I found it on accident, and then through a human design exercise, it came back to me in full circle that when I'm stressed out or high anxiety, that's my root cause to bring me back.
Yep.
And it's just funny how those two things interlink. And I'm still learning, I quit drinking about 10 months ago because I wanted to get healthy. I wanted to go to the gym. I have a daughter, right?
Yeah.
The longevity is important to me. I used to be the guy that said, live fast, die young. I almost got it tattooed on me at a stage of my life. Because I was just like, dude, I'm just going to do it. And if I'm going to go as far as I can and I'm going to live.
Yeah.
And then whatever happens, right? But there wasn't that purpose. There wasn't that reason for longevity. So it's just funny how these small changes, and I'm still in my journey,
Yeah, of course. We all
are
are.
continuing to just stack and stack. And as I make these positive changes physically, health-wise, eating a little bit better, at the end of the day, I think they're going to compound and it's going to be explosive.
100%.
And I'm not great at all of it. I fell off the gym the last few months, right? Got big projects, this event tonight, the conference, the 6-month program. But I know I need to get back to it, and I've got people around me that are pushing me to do it.
Yeah.
You're looking at 2 of them behind the camera right now.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And that's where it comes back again, full circle to relationships. The relationship I had with a friend, Nick Cavuto, who did that human design exercise, solidified what I already had thought. I just needed some help and in the skill set that he was, masterful in. I mean, he went through the whole thing, explained it. I needed help getting back to the gym because I fell off. I've got a lot going on late nights, right? Things like that. I've got friends on the video team that help me with that. So it's just, as I progress through this, I continue to learn from people. And I think for me, it's been extremely beneficial to show up to the event, go take the speaking gig in Texas that's unpaid, meet you, develop a great relationship that's not just digitally through Instagram.
That's right.
You're here now in Nashville.
Yes.
You're releasing a book. How can I help? Throw an event. You're speaking at the right? Like all these amazing things happen through stages of relationships. And it's just, it's so mind blowing to me because there was a period of time where I wanted to do things solo and I was so strong and tough and I didn't need anybody.
Yeah.
And as I progress in life and progress in age, I find that in the darkest times, those people have helped me, and they've been on the mountaintop celebrating with me in the best of times.
Yeah.
So how do I stay around the right people? How do I pour into others? How do I help people? And that's the whole basis of why I throw events. I can reach a larger audience and give people access to that information.
That's the power of community, right? That's one thing I doubled down on right from the beginning because there's a big difference between an audience and a community. Sounds like you've surrounded yourself with a really strong community. people that are not afraid to co-sign your bullshit, right? Like if they see you slacking somewhere, they're gonna, yo, what's up? What's going on over there? I noticed you haven't been to the gym in a month.
Yeah.
Those are the people you want to surround yourself with, not yes people, so to speak, people that want to actually see you elevate and encourage you to be better. So I'm so happy that you found that, and obviously it's a journey. We're still meeting people along the way, but it's so important. You have to have a support system.
How do you deal with maybe abrupt conversations with people? So like your friend's fucking up, making the wrong decision. They're maybe a little bit sensitive. How do you coach them? How do you lean into them without pushing and separating that relationship? It's something that I see done very well, and it's something that I see done very poorly. And I ask you because you coach a lot of people. You've got a great community, and you're an honest guy. Like you'll tell me if I'm falling off my shit. You'll tell me, hey, try this, do that. That wasn't great.
Yeah.
How do you thread that honesty without pushing someone too far?
I'm not really trying to be around people this season of life that like want to be full of fluff, right? Like if someone wants my feedback or can't take constructive criticism, then I don't know if that's my type of circle right now.
Gotcha.
Right? So like I don't want someone to tell me that I was great if I wasn't, because how am I going to learn? How am I going to grow? But then there's a way to communicate it. I think that's what you mean, right? Like you don't want to tell someone that just had their first speaking engagement, my man, like that was terrible. Like, what are you doing? Because that's not empowering. Saying, congratulations, you got the first one out of the way. Now we can do the film work. We can assess. We can see what we liked, what we didn't, we want to improve upon. And we collect the data and go from there.
Yep.
Can I make some suggestions? Yeah, sure. This is what I would do. I would grab their attention. I would work on the tonality. I would pause a little bit, just stuff like that. And then if they can't receive that, if you communicate it very nicely and like encouraging, then you look, people talk about being a good coach, but there's an art to being coachable. You got to be able to take feedback, right?
Totally. I think that's it's a give and a take, right?
Yeah. But also I want to emphasize there's a way to communicate. Like I never responded well to like tough love, like shred someone. That wasn't uplifting to me. If I need to be told that I can improve in certain areas, please tell me. But do it in a way where after the conversation is over, I want to go and get much better for me and for you.
Yeah.
Sometimes people, I know exactly what you mean. Like they can try to hit you with ways to improve, but the way they do it comes across either condescending or disempowering. And then nobody wins.
True. It's the art of communication.
That's right. So big.
To motivate, to get the point across,
Yeah.
to make it, a persuasive argument.
It's
sometimes.
kind of like I was just telling
right?
you with the hotel when I got here. Like the woman was not having it. She wouldn't let me check into the room earlier. I was like, would it be too much trouble to speak to a manager? I never lost my cool. And then we built a rapport. And then here are your keys, sir, in 2 seconds. But like the old Craig, much more unenlightened and immature, I probably would have made that confrontation. I'd be like, what do you mean you can't check in?
Yeah.
But now I'm aware and I have no ego. So I understood that she wasn't budging. Is there somebody else I might be able to speak to? So communication is huge to get you so far.
Totally. I love it. So obviously your book, the Reinvention Formula, you've got that coming out. When's the date?
August 15th, but who's counting? 14 days, baby.
14 days.
I can't wait.
What does that mean? What does reinvent yourself mean?
Yeah, so number one, we just got a TED Talk too, which I'm super excited about. And the topic of that...
Where at?
It's going to be in Kansas City.
Let's go,
Missouri.
dude.
Yeah,
Come on,
yeah.
baby. Let's go.
Hell yeah. It's going to be a busy month in October. That's your next event too.
Yeah.
And we haven't announced it yet, but the big idea that we're unveiling for that is to reinvent how people think about reinvention. And when I think about reinvention, I don't think about starting over from scratch. It's what is that thing that you've been dying to do? What have you been putting off? Everybody has something in them, their DNA, their makeup, that they always wanted to do. I suggest people lean into that. And for me, even if you didn't like me, very hard to believe, I know. One thing that you couldn't deny is that I had one life for 35 years, and then I pivoted extremely successfully and reinvented myself to great success in what most people would consider a short amount of time. But how? Right? So all the tools that I've been cultivating for years, the mindset, the emotional intelligence, the strategies, the business, the Kabbalah, the historic figures, all of it helped me. But then how did I pivot and build a personal brand? So all that's in there. It's also a little bit of my story. the lessons extracted from the rock bottoms, the challenges, the obstacles, the things that didn't go right, how I applied them to have success in other endeavors. I wanted to create a hybrid. I've read enough self-help books, and I wanted to separate myself with everything I do. I want to be different. I want to be unique.
Be you.
That's it. And how many books have you read that are good, but it's the same thing? It's a list of principles. And it's like, it's kind of just respectfully like regurgitated. So I wanted to create something that the world hasn't quite seen before, or at least I haven't. And that's what this is, with a hybrid of my story, personal lessons, and also all the mindset and inner game work that I've been doing for 15 years, put all into one vessel, the Reinvention Formula.
I love it. I love it. What's a little, I know you use the word nuggets a lot in your social. What's a little nugget you can share with us that has been impactful for you? I know the whole book is going to blow your mind and allow you to tweak some things and think different, but what's something that you can share with us to just blow our mind?
Yeah, one of my favorite superpowers that I possess that's accessible to everybody, but I see a lot of people lack it, is self-belief and certainty. And I don't just mean like a confidence and a swag, like an undeniable, unwavering self-belief, like an insurance. Like you could pivot and start something different and you know you'll be successful. Maybe not right out the gate, but you're determined enough, resourceful, and creative. Yeah. And you have that maniacal drive. And I talk about how you can actually build a bulletproof mindset and cultivate self-belief. And I've never actually seen that explained the way I have. So I'm excited for people to get their hands on that. Yeah. I think self-belief is everything in life. It'll get you so much further than any certifications, even just being a really good human. An undeniable self-belief that you could pull stuff off, that you could do stuff, I think is a cheat code.
How do you keep the faith in that when you may not be having a lot of wins in your life? Like how do you believe in yourself if you don't have tangible things to lean back on?
That's a great question.
Because I think we all say, okay, I'm talented, I've got skills, I've got somewhat of a great track record, but I'm doing this new thing. How do you get that faith to just believe in yourself?
First and foremost, I would set actionable and achievable goals. I don't care how small they are. So you can start to get momentum, start to cross things off the list, get that dopamine hit. Because you could do certain things, right? You don't have to get a touchdown every day, but you can get some first downs. And now all of a sudden your faith starts to get a little bit bigger. Wait a minute, I can do this. Yep. Maybe I didn't get the 8-figure deal today, but I did make this great relationship, or I did put myself out there. I did show up on social media. I did announce my brand. I did say I'm throwing an event. You can do certain things to start to move the chains, and then your faith will be in congruency with your self-belief. And you want to put yourself in situations where you're likely to succeed. Now, just to be clear, I'm all about thinking huge and setting really audacious goals. But what are some small, specific things that you can actually do right now to start conquering? Yeah. And then momentum. I mean, that's the toughest thing to get and the easiest thing to lose. But once you get it, the wind's at your back. And there are ways to cultivate momentum.
So getting that momentum, catching some small wins, being super detailed, having gratitude for that, I would assume is a piece of it, right? Yeah. Like I set out to do this and I accomplished it in a day. Yeah. So I think that's important too. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, gratitude's huge. Everybody talks about it for a reason. It's in every spiritual text of all time. Of course, if you reaffirm your assets or think about things that you're grateful for, even small wins, that'll definitely give you some confidence, get some momentum and so forth. And then also celebrate the small wins, right? Like, and just to be clear, you don't have to like pop champagne, if you get your first client or whatever the case would be, your first 6-figure month, whatever. But take a second, receive it, and then, then you maintain that mentality like I've never arrived, and then it's on to the next one. But something that I've really been working on and I've been getting better at is to take a second in the moment and acknowledge, look how far we've come, look what we just did, and then on to the next one.
My wife pushes me to do a lot of that, even today. Yeah. We had some complications on the property where the event was at. It was my fault. I was missing an adapter, things like that. and I'm stressing out a little bit, and she's reminding me, like, live in the moment. Look at the attendee list. Look at the people that are in the room tonight. Like, this thing has upgraded every single time, Jim. And I'm like, man, yeah, I gotta live in that moment. I have to understand it and be present in that emotion and that feeling. Yeah. Because it's tough when you're facing some struggles or some stress or trying to find a solution.
That's actually a cheat code too. Whenever I found myself in a rut, which surprises people, but I am human to the best of my knowledge, what I do is I stop focusing on anything else and I just say, okay, how can I make this next activity as magical as I possibly can? Forget about winning the day and all that's become very trendy. How can I win this next activity? And then all of a sudden those begin to stack and they compound. And then you start to expand. And then over the course of the day, like, whoa, we got our momentum back. We're on to some great things. And the best way to do that is to be super present and mindful in every interaction. Like me and you right now, I don't care about anything else. I'm not even worried about speaking tonight or my flight before or anything. Just me and you in this conversation. How can we build a rapport and give the best content possible to make the biggest impact? And when you treat every activity, I don't care if it's playing with your kid, anything.
Yep.
If you treat every single activity like that over the course of the day, you can do some really big, epic, special things.
I love it. I love it. How do you keep momentum, right? So like in those moments, we're building it, we're stacking wins, we've got it.
Yeah.
Do you do anything cheat code or specific to try to keep that momentum or capture it at least and repurpose it or reuse it?
I want to acknowledge you because you're asking great questions that I think are going to be so valuable to the audience because they're unique. For me, in order to keep momentum going, you have to always have things that you're excited about because then it never gets dull or boring. There's always some new moonshot or some new vision or something excited that's in the calendar, whether it be a TED Talk or a new book or an event that you're speaking at or signing up for a marathon. I always have things going on that force me to level up. And as a result, I'm super passionate, enthusiastic, and excited about it every single day. If I didn't have new developments like I didn't for so long on Wall Street, then it's easy to just get miserable and down, depressed, anxious.
You hear a lot of people say they're bored at work or, they've finished their project early and they're just kind of showing up.
Right.
And I think that's so detrimental to a barrier of your growth. And quite honestly, it was one of the reasons why I left the company I used to work for. I didn't have to show up. Little too much drinking, right? And it's like, oh, I'll go in at 10, catch a meeting, do a lunch, go hang out with friends. And I'm like, man, this is a cool lifestyle. I'm making a lot of money and I've built a team, right? I put the work in. Mm-hmm. I built the team and it's operating. Yeah. And I don't really have to do much. But then like the next day I was like, man, this isn't me.
It's not the life.
I'm a lifelong learner.
Yeah.
Like I got nothing else to go look forward to. I got to get out of this,
right.
And then I go and I'm like, hey, I want to do this or that. And hey, it's going to be a little bit, or we're not going that way in the company. And I'm like, I'm out. Yeah. I'm out because I can't live my life without stacking the next goal. But I think that's so important to what we just talked about prior to this exact conversation of living in those moments.
There's got to be,
because you got to balance that, right? You got to keep the momentum and schedule things, but you also can't be looking futuristically.
No, I think I've mastered that, and it took me about, I would say, 37 years. So I'm not like, trying to sound arrogant. It took me a while, but essentially to always have something that you're looking forward to, but also being present to take a second. And I'm going to challenge you tonight during your event when it's unbelievable, people making great connections and it's a lot of value, to take a second and take it in, because I did that in my last live event and it was really special. And you gotta create time for those things, 100%. And also, I just want to say to your last point, you see this often with people that retire very early, right? Even if they have a lot of money, like what now? And they lose that momentum, and some people even die early. But like my dad's 87 years young and he's battling cancer and he's doing the best he can. And he's still kind of working and like he's excited about what we're doing. He's got a grandkid and he loves my fiance. All these things keep him so excited because he has purpose.
Yep.
And I believe that keeps him going.
I'm with you. And the longevity of life and what I've just seen in not a million case studies, but I've looked into some things, and that person's always using their brain. My wife's grandmother, she's, in her 80s, and she's grabs our dog, the kid, she's holding the kid, she's talking about how she's going and doing this and having coffee meetups and like she's in it. She's completely there as if it was anybody in their 30s having a conversation. Right. It's because she's active. She's still meeting with people. She's involved in things.
She's purpose.
Yeah, she's living, right? And she's surrounded by people, and she's purposely built that.
Yeah.
So I mean, any study I look at, I'm like, okay, retire to do what? Your passion?
Right.
I don't want to retire to do my passion. I want to do my passion and make a ton of money.
Same.
And that's the season that I'm in my life. And I've made this transition last October, right? Not even a year.
Yeah.
And, you know, I just posted something today. I'm like, this is what I need to be doing. This is what I am doing. And, like, I'm showing up in my dreams.
That was
now,
beautifully said.
Have I accomplished the things I know I'm capable of?
Not yet.
Not yet. But it's just a matter of time.
Correct.
And timing has been a very interesting concept I've dove into a lot lately. And I'll give you a perfect example. I was getting on Brad Lee's Dropping Bombs podcast, and he got sick and had to cancel. And, you know, film crew here today was flying out, right? We had to get refunded funds. I paid the hotel. I couldn't cancel. It was the day before. Brad's sick, right? I'm like, this sucks. I'm losing money. No big deal. A little frustrated because I'm like, this is just shitty timing, right? But then I thought about it, and I was on his podcast last week. And if I went on his podcast 2 months prior, I would have never maximized that opportunity. I would have never showed up the way that I did. I fucking crushed it in my mind, right? And that's all that I really care about. Because you may think I suck, they might think I suck, but I don't care. I feel like I crushed it. But I know that I wouldn't have crushed it, and I wouldn't have showed up, and I wouldn't have been so positive, and I wouldn't have had this conference, this 6-month program that I'm doing, all fine-tuned, and the messaging perfect to speak to that audience, right? So it's funny, like, those situations happen. I lost money in that situation. I was stressed out. I didn't know when we were going to reschedule. I was so excited and then was somewhat deflated, right? Because we couldn't do it. But if I did it, that podcast would have sucked.
You ended up making more money with the divine intervention, right? Because you went on, you were ready for it, and the quantitative value that's going to occur from that is going to be significantly more than what you lost from the hotel. So you said timing. I think of like divine intervention.
It's just crazy to me, you know? And it's like when those negative things happen, because I'm doing bigger things, because I'm playing at a higher level, I can't use those as detraction from my motivation, my desire, and my fire, because it probably is just not the right timing for those things to happen. Yeah. And they will happen. And they will build.
That's a whole other mindset to talk about, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But just understanding that life happens for you, not to you. And it's so tough to see in the moment. Like when that happened, you're probably like, why did this happen? But it's not why me, it's try me. And you just have to have that mentality. Like, I don't exactly know why this happened just now, but I'm looking forward to seeing how it unfolds. And I know what happened for me. And when you have that mentality, you can never really get crushed or crippled.
Yep. You just got to roll with it. Because at the end of the day, if you have faith, it's all going to work out.
Right.
You know? And I'm someone who didn't have faith, man. I'm just like, fuck it, I'll just keep going. That was my attitude. Aggressive. Kid from the streets in Boston, right? Like, fuck it, I'll just keep going. I didn't even think about it. And that was so cool when I look back on it, because it allowed me to push through a lot of things and get to the other side. But the reality of it is I could have been a little bit more thoughtful in it and lived in the moment and realized that it wasn't the right timing, instead of having an emotion of anger and fear. Right? And that's where I'm learning and growing. And I think I've grown immensely in that side of it. But it's a constant challenge. It's a day-to-day thing for me, because when you play at a bigger scale, and I'm not playing at this bigger scale for the last 5 years. Like I'm up in the level recently. More stuff. It's harder to do, man. More stuff happens. There's more people involved, right? We talked about team and relationships. And sometimes all those aren't aligned. Sometimes bad decisions occur. Sometimes things happen out of your control based on timing or a necessity to accomplish a goal or someone's role. And, you know, I just continue to try to remind myself that, you know, there's a reason behind it. There's a purpose, and this is all working out It just may not be aligned with the way in my logic brain today that I thought it would work out.
And you don't even have to figure it out right now. Just allow whatever it is that you're connected to
Yeah.
to take shape and unfold it. It's always better that way, just like what happened with you.
Yep. It's crazy. Crazy to think about.
It always happens when you have the mentality, and then you look back, you're like, thank God that happened. Or had that not have happened, this wouldn't have happened.
It's all interconnected. It just, I think, depends on how you look at it and build the story.
It's the chessboard of life, moving pieces around for your favor. But you can't see it at the time. You don't understand every single move. But if you have faith and you're doing the right thing, it will unfold as it's supposed to.
I love it. I love it. So, man, your book, you're launching, like, what are you super excited about with this? Like, I know why you're doing it, but, like, what's that moment when you launch a book where you're like, holy shit, this is awesome. This is it. Like,
yeah, so I say this very humbly. Like, I expected to be in this position. Everything that we've done, like in terms of my 10-lane highway, when I set the vision, one of them was a book deal. So this is that time right now. So we'll see what happens in regards to commercial success. I promised myself I wouldn't lose my soul in the process like a lot of my friends, celebrity authors have. I'm just going to do the best that I can to spread the message. And we have a launch team for anyone that's pre-ordered the book beforehand. And we're reading the book in a special group before the rest of the world has access. And so far, the feedback has been exactly what I hoped for.
I love it.
And what that is as follows. When you read this book, you feel like you can do anything. Like there's no limits. There's no constraints. You can step into your dreams. You can make a massive impact, contribute, make a lot of money. And with the tools inside this book, you feel like you're ready to actually do so. All the success out there, the abundance that other people have, it doesn't seem so far away now. Because I'm just an ordinary cat who went for it, leaned in, took my shot, and has done extraordinary things. And so the feedback of the book is right on schedule, and we're only 10 chapters in. So I'm super pumped for the world to just get their hands on this, receive that energy, and just play bigger. And that sounds too cliche, but like that's what we all need. We were talking about relationships, like make the world a better place. There's enough for everybody to win and win big. And when we have that mentality, there's nothing that could stop us.
I love it. I love it. So talking about relationships, I saw John Gordon wrote you forward. How did you build that relationship? Did you know John prior to your reinvention?
Speaking of John, I just bumped into him today. How crazy is that? John and I formed a friendship maybe a year or two ago. He's kind of been an indirect mentor to me. It's not like I work with him specifically, but he's become a dear friend and someone that I would go to, like we talked about earlier, relationships and just someone I could trust, bounce ideas off of. Someone that's clearly a little bit further ahead than I am. He's a 53-year-old man.
How'd you get in the room with him? Did you pay him? Did you reach out to him through email? Was it through another relationship?
So yeah, and I'll talk about this later tonight, and I don't give away too much. But one of the things I did when I built my personal brand was make strategic relationships where I started to give a perception, a vibe, if you will. And so I expect to be with some of these people now, but just to be clear, I provide a win-win opportunity for them. It's not just, can you do me a favor?
Of course.
And so through some mutual friends, I think maybe me and Dave did something with John, like on one of our Instagram live shows, or one of the events I was at, I met him. And
that's Dave Meltzer?
Yeah. And we just hit it off and formed a friendship and then exchanged numbers. And when it came time to, most of his books are done with Wiley, the same publisher that gave us the big record first time author book deal. And when it came time to choose someone to do the forward, I didn't have to think too hard. John was the first person that came to mind. And so I asked him, and he made a joke. He's like, if I do the forward, now we're bonded for life. I'm like, okay, that's great. What an honor. He said, I would love to do it.
Amazing.
And so he did it. It's really special. And then we just dropped his episode on our show today, The Sales Experience, because he just dropped another book, another bestseller, shocking. And then right when I landed in Nashville to come see you, the first human that I saw was John Gordon. I mean, talk about divine intervention. You can't make this stuff up.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So you didn't shoot the podcast and both flew out of New York. You dropped it today.
Filmed it a while
So there
ago.
wasn't correlation this morning. It was just y'all were just bouncing from Manhattan at the same time.
I spoke to him on Sunday for 20 minutes because we were just having a great conversation on the phone. And he knew that I was coming to Nashville and he was going somewhere, but we never put two and two together that we might run into each other. There he was, bang.
Boom.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. But also, this is like what happens now in this frequency.
Yep.
Like you expect to have blessings and great run-ins and great things happen to you. And that's what I want everybody to experience, is to get into that elevated frequency where you're a vibrational match for great stuff to happen for you.
When you made this decision to reinvent yourself, and you were building the plan, you had no doubt in that plan? You had no doubt in doing this? You were 100% like, I'm in this, I can do it?
So I want to be very clear. It's not like I thought I would become Tony Robbins overnight, but I wasn't going to give up. And it occurred to me that I had been successful in things that I wasn't really that passionate about, like business, Wall Street, running. I'd never been a runner before. Now I'm running pretty fast times at marathons. When it occurred to me that I actually love personal development, I literally asked myself, how can I fail? Humbly. I love this stuff, and I'm determined enough to figure it out. So if I get knocked on my ass, I'll pick myself back up, I'll extract the lessons, and I'll allocate them so I can get better, grow, and evolve. And so I never had a doubt that it couldn't get done. I'm humbled at the speed, I should say, at which has blown up, for sure.
What was the scariest part about that decision to reinvent yourself? When you were in that moment, can you bring yourself back to where was it, in your apartment?
Yeah.
You're in your apartment, you're like, I'm reinventing myself. This is where I'm going. I'm building the plan. What was the scariest thought in your mind throughout that process?
I'm going to say something I'd never said out loud in my entire life, because it's a great question. The scariest thing for me at that moment was that the lockdown would end and I'd have to go back to work before I really put this vision together.
Wow.
Because at first it was 2 weeks, if you remember correctly.
Yep.
It's going to be 2 weeks. I shut down my office. Then it was a month. Then April was, ghost town in New York City. And I just wanted more time to really put this together and then hit the ground running. So the biggest scary thought that I had was,
I got to go back to work on Monday.
Straight out. I never said that out loud.
Damn.
I never said that out loud, but that's really what it was.
Okay.
I was so
appreciate you sharing
into this. I had never felt so aligned in my entire life. And one of the things I talk about often is that it doesn't take time. It just takes alignment. It's obvious from my vantage point that you're in alignment now. And it probably took you a while to get here. But now things are happening for you. That doesn't surprise me. It might surprise other people.
Yep.
So when you get into alignment, great things begin to happen.
It's funny, too. What I notice when I start, I call it cotton candy conversation. Hey, how are you? Good. How you doing? Right? It's fucking fluff, dude. It's cotton candy. Right? Once I started having stopped having those conversations, I found myself in circles, random coffee meetings with people that were aligned in those higher level conversations. And real estate, I had another agent reach out to me randomly. Hey, Jim, I saw your $1.5 million listing in East Nashville. Can I, do an open house? Sure, no problem. Right? We set you up. They do the open house. I'm like, you know what? Relationships are important to me. This person did it. I'm going to buy her lunch. I sit down. Never met her. Didn't ever heard her name in Nashville. I sit down to lunch with her. We have this amazing conversation about alignment and purpose and all these things.
The best types of conversations.
The best types of conversations. And it was completely out of the blue. And it was me doing something that most people do. Like, they're like, oh yeah, you do the open house, and it's just kind of like for your benefit, right? And I'm like, man, I don't want to treat people like that. It's for my benefit too. Right? They were there. They showed up. They spent their time. Maybe they got a buyer. Maybe they didn't. But they made my property look good and helped me sell that property. So let me bring them out to lunch. And it's just interesting when I made that switch and dove into my purpose of how I want to help people and broker relationships and connect and push people to think deeper and take action. When I made that switch in that moment, which I didn't do this prior, but in my journey, in my alignment, I'm like, this is the right thing to do. It's funny that the person that was in alignment with what I'm looking to do and having higher level conversations.
Not a coincidence.
It's not a coincidence.
No.
Yeah.
That's how it happens. You were available, as I like to say, finally.
Yeah.
When you become available, that's when you hear the right thought, you meet the right person, the right conversation, and then great stuff begins to happen. People wait their whole life to try to become available. It took me so long. Right? Like people ask me, had it not been for the pandemic, would I have started CLS? I don't know, but not when I did, because I wasn't available until then.
At what age did you make this transition?
35.
35 years old.
Yeah.
Did you ever in your mind think like, oh, I should have done this earlier, or like, man, am I too young to make this change? Or like, did any of those thoughts come into play of your age and where you were specifically at in life?
No, and here's why. Because I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, and I can improve, right? And it wouldn't have worked years ago, because all the rock bottom, the craziness that I dealt with at the end of Wall Street before I reinvented myself, like the depression, that stuff, I needed to go through that.
Yep.
Sometimes you have to go through the darkness to want to see the light. So I don't think it would have catapulted the way it did had I started it prematurely. So divine timing.
I love it. Well, it comes back to timing, right?
Yeah.
Now, I asked that question because now that I'm having a lot of higher level conversations, the cotton candy ones are out.
Yeah.
I often hear a lot of people saying, "Wow, Jim, you're having these conversations, you're engaging with these folks. I'm 50 and it took me 48 years to get there, and you're 33." And sometimes I don't know how to respond to that because I'm like, it doesn't matter. I want to tell the person it doesn't matter.
Right.
You made the decision and you're not dead, right? You're not on the deathbed looking up and the things, right? And you're like, man, I fucked up in life and I've been doing stuff I never wanted to do and I didn't leave anything behind I wanted to, and I sold my soul to corporate America or someone I didn't love that I married or whatever, right?
Ooh.
Like
making it very real for the audience right now. I think most people, sadly, are experiencing that.
I do.
One or the other, or maybe both.
I think one of the biggest hacks on life is your life partner. If you don't choose the right person, like that was the scariest thing for me to get married was, am I choosing the right person? Because I know that I am unique. I do a lot. When people tell me no, I push harder. Like I don't give up. And my lifestyle is not going to be what a majority of others is. So I think that's just so important to find that right partner. And I think, a lot of people get to those 50, 60, and then they make that realization. But I struggle with having that conversation because I'm like, I want to motivate them that they made the decision before it was too late, but they're on that later side of life.
Yeah.
And it's hard, I think, for them to realize, shit, I could have done this 20, 30 years ago.
You mean get out of a relationship?
Get out of a relationship or just
a job,
live their dream and their purpose and stop selling their soul to mindless shit that they just show up for a green piece of paper.
So one of the many messages in the book is it's never too late, you're never too old, for my book.
Funny how that works, huh? I asked this random question
and I believe
that. A chapter in your book.
I don't want anybody to feel like it's too late. It doesn't matter how old you are. There's people in my community that are literally 80 and on fire and they're excited about life.
I love it.
And then there's people that are 26 and miserable and have no direction, right? So it's all about a mindset. And in regards to relationships, it's tricky because it's become so trendy to get a divorce and split up. I think it's 50%. So, but if it's not the right partner, if you guys have grown apart, then you both deserve to be happy with somebody else. But don't also, just because it's so common now, jump ship.
Yeah.
Right? So definitely work it out if you can. But if you can't, you don't need to sit there for a specific reason, like for the kids or anything like that, because you both deserve to be happy, especially in regards to a career.
Well, I think too is if you're not happy, how can you show up for your kids? You're smiling and it's fake.
Yeah.
How can you look in your kid's eyes and say everything's great
it's inauthentic
when it's not? You know, what are you contributing to their growth? What are you contributing?
It's a facade.
Yeah. And the kids, what I'm learning, because I'm new to parenting, is the kids, they're not watching, they're listening. And, let me rephrase that. They are watching and they are listening.
Yeah.
And sometimes if they don't hear something, they may see something. And it's like when you're fake or you're putting on a front, that's going to come out at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And when you spend that much time with someone like a child,
they're
going to see it. And what does that actually do that you don't even know is what's causing, right? So I think it comes full circle of you need to be happy for your child to be happy.
I wanted to ask you, what is the most challenging thing so far for you as a new parent?
My most challenging task is things take longer. The dinner tonight that we're doing with some VIPs and helping them work on their business and with mindset. Like, I just made the assumption my wife was going to be there tonight. And we had a conversation this morning and she's like, I don't have time to do that. I got to get the baby to sleep. And it's just like, oh yeah. Cause the last VIP dinner we did, was a while ago. It was like 10 months ago.
Yeah.
She was pregnant and she came. Right? So there's those little changes, and it takes time for me to realize that and have that logic, because it's still so new. So I think for me, it's like I want to do a million things, and I crunch things together, and I'm like, this meeting ends and I'm on the phone and I'm jumping in the car and I'm doing all these things. But like a child will slow down that process just a little bit. They don't stop the process, and they don't change what you can do or limit what you can do. There is a part of me in the beginning where I thought having a child would limit me. It just pushes me to be more strategic and think differently and plan better.
Plan better. It's a good one.
It's actually made me dive deeper into the little details, like making sure there's diapers. Because when you're in the car in Nashville, Tennessee, and you don't have a diaper to change, and it smells really bad, and you have to keep the windows up because you're air conditioned, like you don't want to do that again.
I asked you for two reasons. Number one, because I think one of my purposes, aside from what I'm doing now, is to be a dad, and I can't wait to be. Maybe in the not too distant future, we'll see. I'm engaged. We still got to plan the wedding. But the second reason I asked is because we just got a puppy, and I love the guy so much, the little guy. But it's a full-time job. And what I noticed is, and my days are crazy. I'm still in my season of grind, as I like to call it. Yep. I believe when you're beginning something and you're building something special, the first few years, you're going nuts, putting yourself out there, taking all the opportunities and going nuts, making a name for yourself, spreading the message. And then you get to a point where you get hire, delegate, and you work a little bit smarter, not necessarily harder. And we're doing that right now, but I'm still grinding. It's not work to me. I love it, genuinely. But sometimes I literally have 12 Zooms a day, meetings, speaking engagements, coaching calls, all the things. And where there used to be like, let's just say 15 minutes in between a Zoom,
I'm with you, bro.
That no longer exists, because now I get to look after the little guy, Whiskey, and take him outside, get some fresh air, play ball with him or something like that. So like you said, I have to be a lot more strategic, maybe later on or earlier in the morning and so forth. But it's a balancing act. We wouldn't trade it for the world.
Exactly. And that's the best part about it, right? It's like, okay, I have a new challenge and I can figure this out, and I'm smart enough to figure it out. And again, man, who can I reach out to that's done it before? And what relationships do I have with people that will guide me, help me, and care about me?
Yes.
Like this literally applies. If you like the common thread, it's relationships are rocket ships, like in anything that we do, parenting, dogs. I mean, I'm sure, you get in a jam or you're traveling and you need a buddy to go let out whiskey, or, you know what I mean? Like, or even you're paying someone to watch your dog, but that's a relationship because you've built trust with that person and you trust them to go into your home and spend time with your pup. Like it's in every facet of everything we do. And we're just in such a high touch, low touch, high tech world right now. AI, robots, messaging, sequences, WordPass. I mean, it's all over the place. And, I think there's going to be a massive separation for those people who get too involved into the automation and the AI and forget how to have the deep connection, build the relationship, and touch folks and help folks,
Another whole conversation in itself, the AI and stuff. And one of the ways that we were able to build the brand the way we have is I took a lot of pride in that human connection, make it personal. Like sometimes in the beginning of CLS, in the pandemic, while everybody was drinking a bottle of wine and watching Tiger King, I was responding to people that were gracious enough to comment on my content, sometimes till 2, 3 a.m. Now, I'm not saying everybody should do that immediately, but I wanted to go the extra mile in the beginning. And that really strengthened the community.
Yep.
And nowadays, everything is automated. So if you comment something, you automatically get a DM, but it's a robot.
Yeah.
So it's like, where do you say, okay, I need to work a little smarter so I have the automated stuff, but also it's still me. So there's, again, that balancing act.
How do you balance it, man?
You'll never be able to replace this, like what we're doing right now.
And live events, like the magic, the energy, the aura, the vibe, like...
Yeah.
We need it as humans. It's core to our heart. It's core to our soul.
Yep.
Is that interaction, right? And at the end of the day, what it is it's a degree of love. It's all it is. We seek love as humans, I believe. And a relationship doesn't mean sex or at that level, right? Like, but there's still love there. You know, it's okay to tell your bro you love him and you care about him. That doesn't mean one thing or another.
Right.
And I think in today's day and world, we're so worried about a lot of that. But the reality of it is like, man, I care about you and I love you and I want to see you succeed. And the only way to build those relationships and to have that trust and that vulnerability and that honesty is in person most of the time, because you're assessing body language, the vibe, you know, those situations you can't get over Zooms.
True.
I don't believe you can get the same vibe over Zoom.
No, it's not ever going to be the same as
Yeah.
this compared to a Zoom coffee chat.
Yeah. How have you used tech but also kept the human connection? Like, I know you said you'd made all those comments and things like that. I'm assuming, you know, you're doing a lot, you're reaching a lot of people. Like, I would make the assumption you're using automation.
Yeah, we are now.
Because you're maximizing your reach.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very appropriate.
Yeah.
Right? I do. Because I know where your heart is.
Mm.
I know what your goals are. And your goals are to reach people and help them. And there's a tool to be used to do that, to reach more people.
Right.
But how do you keep that human connection? Are you just spending time making sure you're communicating and people know it's you?
There's only so much of me to go around now. So I have to put my ego aside and realize, like, okay, how can I lean into some of this stuff so that we can touch more lives and still keep it the same frequency, right? So it'll be my words, and maybe it'll be automative. So I can't check, 1,000 DMs a day.
Of course.
But when you get on a call, let's say you enter my community or you had a speaking gig of ours or the book, that's me.
Yeah.
That's the resonance of transferring energy. Like tonight, I don't know, it was your assistant or somebody said, does Craig only have one slide? And we're like, yeah, it's just one. Because I'm nothing against PowerPoints or anything like that. But for me personally, I just want to be intimate and just transfer that energy.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So that's what's most important to me. And as AI, I don't think it's going anywhere. So you got to lean in. If you can apply it to work a little bit smarter and it can help you and add value to people in the business and so forth, you have to explore that.
Of course.
But never lose the DNA or the core values, if you will, that is Craig or CLS.
I love it. I love it. So what's next, man? You've got a 10-lane highway. You got the book, 14 days out. You're speaking. I seen you up in Canada.
Yes.
We were in Houston together last month. We're in Nashville now. Like, what's next?
Everybody keeps asking me what's next, and what I'm making emphasis to take in the moment. Like right now, all I care about is being with you. But we just locked in our TED Talk, which is exciting.
Yeah, man.
We have our next live event, CLS Beverly Hills, formerly known as CLS LA, for we like Beverly Hills better. That's going to be August 19th, the weekend of the book launch. I'm super excited about that. Our live events are awesome.
That's the one that you invited me out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to get out there and make it, brother.
I would love that. So one of the cool things about our live events is there's no green room by design. So like speaker, typically at events, you know this. Speaker, green room out. In our events, you get to interact with the speakers as if they're one of the attendees.
I love it.
And it takes a special type of speaker to want to be in that type of room.
It 100% does.
So we take pride in that. Planning a wedding right now, although if I'm being 100% vulnerable and transparent, we could use a little momentum with that because we're so busy. But we'll get that going hopefully right after the book launch. And just, I know this isn't the sexiest answer, but just more. And when I say more, it continue to extend the reach. Like if you looked at a graph of CLS, like a chart, it would look like this. And for the listeners that can't see, I'm just moving in a steady incline over 3 years. And that's what you want. Because anything that goes like this usually goes like this.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like this. I'm having the time of my life. We're impacting so many. We're making millions of dollars. Everything's going great. And also, I'm available. I don't know what I don't know. Like a lot of the great opportunities that have coming our way are things that I didn't even see coming. Why? Because people want a piece of it, the momentum. It's contagious. It's magnetic. So continuing doing what we're doing, stay available, and continue to extend the reach.
I love it, man. I love it.
Yeah. And we'll save some stuff for tonight, of course.
Yeah, that was dope, man. Thank you for being vulnerable. I was asking some deep questions there.
These are the best types of conversations. But these are what are the most meaningful. Number one, what resonate with the audience the most. And if I'm being honest, the ones that excite me the most.
Yeah.
This is real dialogue. Like you said, with cotton candy, is that what we called it? Like, I don't have time for that shit anymore.
Yeah, I'm with you, man.
Yeah.
So with the wedding, like, and we were talking about partners and spouses,
Yeah.
like, I'm sure she understands where you're at and what your goal is. Like, how has your relationship been? Like, did you kind of, with my wife, I said, hey, I'm doing all this stuff, like, just
Yeah.
want to be up front.
Yeah.
Does that kind of how you're like, and I don't feel free to be like, dude, you're asking too deep of questions, but
Never.
I'm just curious because, like, you're like, I got this going on and I'm more and more and more, and we're doing this and the wedding, I'm trying to figure that out. I need some momentum. Like, I'm sure
Right.
your fiance is in line with your goals and what you're doing.
Yeah. So my fiance grew up in Ukraine. She moved here when she was 14. She's basically American, but like the way she was brought up, she never like planned a wedding in her head. She didn't like visualize a dress or a ring. Like this is all new to her. So it's exciting, but she wasn't one of those girls that grew up and knew exactly what she wanted. She's
Gotcha.
also very busy. She's a great career in her own right. And she also helps me with CLS because right now we're growing so rapidly that we're hiring and scaling and delegating.
Yep.
That's been a challenge for me to find the right talent that I could trust. So she still helps out a lot. So essentially she has 2 full-time jobs and we have a puppy, so make that 3. So I actually spoke to a couple wedding planners a month or 2 ago, and it was liberating. It was like, look, I'll be honest, like I don't have the time for this. Can
Yeah.
you get us organized? And just speaking to them made me feel better about the process. She has in her mind like she would rather plan it, but we just have so much on our plate that she hasn't had the opportunity yet. So she totally gets what we're doing. She loves it. She's my biggest supporter, and we'll look to really gain momentum, I'd say, after this book launch, probably September, and really put our foot down and bring this thing to life.
I'm happy for you, man.
Thank you, buddy.
Truly happy for
I
you.
I love it. I love her so much. I love what we're doing. There's no rush, essentially, but it's about that time that we put a date in the calendar.
I love it,
So I
man.
would say September. We'll probably get momentum with that.
I love it. Well, thanks for joining me, brother.
Thank you for having me. There's no place else I'd rather be.
I love it, dude. Cool.